Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are now live, and the purpose of this video is just to show you how I configured my TCA Thrustmaster throttle quadrant to the PMDG 737. Now, most of you, if you realize, when you first start the PMDG 737, the throttles go haywire. The left and right throttles do not match, they do not align, and same thing happens with the spoilers and the flaps. So I've made this video just to simplify how to configure it, and I hope you like it. So first thing what you do is put your throttles on your Thrustmaster to idle, your spoilers to 0, and your flaps to 0 as well. In this video, I'm also going to show you a workaround the parking brake issue, which is happening on the Thrustmaster TCA quadrant, and also the gear lever. Now, the gear lever is a bit tricky. It's not going to work at all, so we're just going to ignore that. So let's have a look. So once your throttles are on idle on your TCA quadrant, head over to controls. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a profile for the TCA quadrant. So if you just click the TCA quadrant and go to preset manager and click this button, which is the duplicate button. So if you see that, click this duplicate button and it will create a duplicate profile for the TCA quadrant. You name it as TCA quadrant 1 and 2 737 PMDGs. That's what I've done. So once you do that, you head over to the quadrant itself and you go to search by name. So what you need to do is put throttle axis. When you put throttle axis, hang on a minute, let me have a look here. Right, so you need to go to throttle 1 axis. So once you put throttle 1 axis, you will see this section here, and in here you just need to put down pardon me, got a bad throat. You need to put joystick left axis X. That is the left throttle axis on your quadrant. So I repeat, put here joystick left axis X. So in other words, you select an input, go down, and you select joystick L axis X. And once you do that, press validate, and that will pre-fill here. Next thing you do is again go to search by name and put throttle 2 axis. So you will see this one here. And in here, you need to put joystick L axis Y. So again, it's the left joystick, but the axis is Y axis. So once you put that here, it will pre-fill here. So if you move your throttle, it will go up and down like that, which means it's working. So by default, these will not be in reverse. So you need to make sure you control the reverse axis. So you make sure there's a tick mark in these reverse axis spaces there. Okay, so once you do that, that's your throttle configured. You need to press save and go back. Right. Now, spoilers. For spoilers, again, you need to configure it. So for spoilers, there are no reverse axis, and flaps, there are no reverse axis. So make sure you don't have these checked in. So if you have these checked in, remove them. Spoilers are joystick right axis Z. So again, joystick right axis Z. So again, you click the space, you select an input, go down to joystick right axis Z. Do not select Z minus or Z plus. It's joystick right axis Z. Z minus and Z plus are something else. Okay, leave them as it is. Flaps axis. Now flaps axis, again, make sure there's no reverse axis tick mark. Okay, flaps axis is joystick left axis Z. So joystick left axis Z. Once you get them validated and you move your axis like I'm doing now, it will go up and down, which means it's configured. Right. Again, hit save. Okay, at the bottom here you will have a save button. You hit that save button. Brakes. Now this is a tricky one. So what I've done is, because the parking brake on the throttle quadrant, it doesn't work at all. So what I've done is I've gone into brakes and I've selected joystick button 20, and the action type on that is on release. So you select an input, select joystick button 20, and action type is on release. Now what happens now is, if you see here, this is my brakes on and this is my brakes off. Brakes on and brakes off. So because it's a toggle parking brake command, when you put the brakes on, it will toggle between whatever state your brakes are in. So if your brakes are off, it will arm them. It will make them on. If your brakes are on, it will take them off. So what you need to do is, to toggle between parking brakes, you need to move it twice. So on, off, on, off. So on, off means they're on, and on, off will mean they're off, which is not bad. So ideally you just need to rotate the parking brake lever once, or the toggle switch once. But in this scenario we're kind of stuck, and PMDG has not yet updated their programming. Maybe in the future updates they will update it. But don't forget, this is a Airbus quadrant. It's not a PMDG. It's not a Boeing quadrant, or it's not a Boeing system. So there has to be some kind of discrepancy there, which is understandable. So all you need to do is joystick button 20 on release, and you need to flick it twice. Okay, so that's that done. Now we can go into landing gear section, but I'm just gonna remove the assignments I've done because these don't work at all. So I'm just gonna clear this and clear gear down as well. So unfortunately for landing gear, we still need to use the keyboard command G, or if you have an external landing gear which you've 3D printed, you can use that by using the relevant commands, or you can use one of the buttons on the old Logitech quadrant as well. So you can just map the Logitech quadrant, one of the buttons, as landing gear, assign them to keyboard command G, and that will work perfectly fine. So that's what you can do. Now we come back to the important section, which is the sensitivity section. Now by default, everything on these sensitivities should be 0. So your sliders, your sensitivity minus should be 0, plus 0, dead zone 0, neutral 0, and extremity dead zone 0, and your reactivity should be 100. But on mine, I had to move my extremities to minus 53, because when I was doing my idle was still going up to around 40% engine power. So I had to move my extremity to minus 53. So guys, you can play around with this and make sure, because every quadrant, because they're magnetic, there are no longer encoders in the quadrant. They are actually magnetic sensors. So those magnetic sensors might have slight deviation. So in order to sacrifice for that deviation, you need to move these extremities to maybe plus 10, 20, 30, or minus 10, 20, 30. In my case, it's minus 53. So I've kept that. So these are the joystick. These are the throttle ones. So that's fine. This joystick L axis Z, if you remember, was for the spoilers. So that also needs to be 0. So if you click here, this needs to be go up and down as well. Okay, when you move it. There we go. Oh, sorry, it's for the flaps. So flaps is moving up and down, and joystick R axis is for the spoilers. So that's moving up and down as well. joystick right axis Z. So joystick left axis Z is for flaps, and down here is joystick right axis Z for the spoilers. So when you've done all this, just hit done, and then again hit save. Right. The only problem here is hold throttle reverse thrust. Now reverse thrust is a separate thing. You need to assign a few commands to enable the reverse thrusters to get activated. So what I've done is, see this red button on your throttle quadrant, which is usually to disengage auto throttle. I've assigned that button to hold throttle reverse thrust. It's also called joystick button 1. So if you search by name in this and you put hold thrust, hold reverse, wait, was it again? Assigned, okay, hold throttle reverse thrust. So once you get hold throttle reverse thrust, you hit this section and press joystick button 1. This joystick button 1 is the button, the red button on your throttles. Action type has to be on press. So what it does now is, when you've landed and you want to hit reverses, you hold this button, right, and then you move the throttles forward. So when you do that, the reverses will kick in. So if I go back into the sim, I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's say you've landed and you're on ground, throttles are on idle. You hold this button and you push your thrusters forward. So when you push your throttles forward, the reverse thrusters are kicking, right? There we go. So push your thrusters forward, reverse thrusters are kicking in. That's the function. If you don't press that, it will be straight throttles and nothing will happen. But if you press that button, see that reverses levers are going up. When the engine is on, the reverse thrusters will kick in. So let's turn the engines on and I'll show you what happens. Once again, if you see the flaps, these are the spoilers. Spoilers are absolutely fine. On half a notch, spoilers are armed. On 1 notch, they're on the increments. And you can change these. I've removed all my D10s from my TCA quadrant. I don't need them. But if you want, you can mechanically remove them. Or if you want to keep them, then adjust your settings in the sensitivity section. Flaps as well. Flaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the way back. So that's working. Throttles are also working. That's fine. We're just letting engine 2 coming on, and then once engine 1 is on, well, engine 1 is coming on, and once engine 2 is on, we're gonna show you all of that. Okay, so there we go. If I press and hold the red button on the throttles and move the throttles forward, it's kicking the reverses. That's what I was telling you about. Okay, so this is it. So basically that's how you configure your PMDG 737. Gear button still is G number, the new alphabet G on your keyboard, so make sure you hit that once you've taken off. And everything else is the same as before. Parking brakes, if you rotate it twice, you disengage, and rotate it another twice, it will engage. So disengage, engage, disengage, and engage. Okay, so have a play around with these settings and see what you think about it. And do